Hello, good evening. Welcome to this evening's Friday live stream Q&A with me, Tim Box. If you don't know who I am a mind coach. I'm a remedial hypnotist and hypnotherapist. I work a lot with anxiety issues. You might have arrived here via my TEDx talk called How to Stop Feeling Anxious About Anxiety, or you might have found my book called Clear Your Head, which is again all about living life without anxiety getting in the way. Or maybe you've just stumbled across the live stream and it's the first time you've encountered me, and if so, welcome. Every Friday on this channel I do a live stream just to answer your questions about anxiety. Now I do have questions that I could answer because people ask me questions on my videos that I put up every week, by the way, if you want to subscribe to the channel. But I would rather be answering the questions that you guys have for me in the room. So yeah, so chuck your questions at me because I'm here for at least half an hour. Although anyone that's been on the recent live streams know they tend to go more like 45 minutes these days, don't they? But that's okay because that's what I'm here for. I see clients one-to-one, by the way. This is what I do for a living. So if I can help, I will help. Okay, I'm just going to say, so I can see lots of people coming in at the moment. Hello, No Guard. Hello, Loz. Hello, Paul. Hello, Matt. Hello, Shane. Hello, Ben. Wow, everyone's in. Right, cool. Good to see you all. Hope you're doing well. I've had a good week. Hope you've had a good week. I've had a busy week. Don't know about you guys, but and I've had a cold week as well because it is freezing in the south of England at the moment. Literally freezing, not just figuratively. We have ice places. That's all I'm going to say. Right. Let's get cracking with these questions then. Also, if you're just coming in the room, please say hi. You know, we tend to say hi here when we arrive. And let me know any thoughts that arise as we're chatting. Okie dokie. Oh, hello, Strawberry Polka Dot. Arriving bang on time again. Love it. Right. Let me put this one up. No, God, this is your one. I'm almost completely off meds. Well done. It's been a long way. I've learned a lot throughout this whole process. I want to thank Tim once again, for he was the first person whose advice really resonated with me. That's really cool. I'm so pleased to hear that you're nearly off meds. And to be fair, I always say this, and apologies if this is sounding like a little bit of a boring old mantra, but I don't talk about meds because I'm not a medical professional. Okay, us hypnotherapists, we're not medically trained, we're not doctors, you know. I think that's why in many ways that's why we get really good results for our clients, because we don't have to work on some sort of medical model where medication has to be included in our treatment, as it were. But you know, if a client of mine, for example, says they want to come off their meds that they're on at the moment, then I always send them, you know, straight back to their doctor, because it's the doctor that will tell you how to come off of them best. And I'm presuming, No God, that you've done this with the supervision of your GP, or maybe you've just done it in a really safe and, you know, methodical way. But my thoughts on it, I'll give you my thoughts on medication for anxiety. Why not? You've probably heard a little bit of it from a TED talk. I'm absolutely I'm in support of using meds to get us, to bridge us over those periods where it's really difficult for us. But I'm not a tremendous fan of the attitude that says meds are going to be the answer for people. I don't think there's any one of us that require medication to feel calm and comfortable as opposed to in a highly anxious state. I think it's the presence of perceived threat that induces the anxious state, no matter what your genetic predisposition might be perceived to be. There's nobody on the planet that requires medication to return to a calm and non-anxious, is that the right way of putting it, state. So it's always good it's always good to have our target to be, hey, let's be comfortable without medication. You know, it's not, as I say, I never advise people to, hey, throw your meds away now, because that's not for me to decide. It's for the individual to decide. But no, that's really pleasing to hear that you're where you are. No, God, that's awesome stuff. And also, you know, thank you. I'm pleased that some of the advice in the videos has helped. Yeah. Oh, you've got a little follow-up comment there. Let me put that up. In my case, it all started with health anxiety. Then I realized I also experienced disproportioned social anxiety and been dealing with the latter recently. Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of times we talk about one anxiety turning into a different type of anxiety. And that's very much because when we're feeling highly anxious about something in our life, then we are in an anxious state. We're kind of in that fight or flight mode. You know, the stress response has been triggered. And of course, when we go into the stress response, our mind is looking at things now through the lens of what threat does that pose to me? Yeah. And so then the situations in our life that previously didn't seem to be any cause for anxiety, suddenly they are a cause for anxiety because we're looking at them through a different lens. It's like, if this resonates with you, it's like normally our theme music playing in our head would be a fairly mundane, lift music type thing. It doesn't really impose any mood or any take on the situation itself. But when we're in a highly anxious state, it's like the Mission Impossible theme is playing. Everything now looks a little bit more dramatic, and we're looking around saying, what's the appropriate, why am I feeling this way? Why is this music playing? Why is everything seeming dramatic? And so you're looking for the potential threat. Yeah, so it's not unusual for one type of anxiety to become another. The good news is, of course, as we do the work to come down off of any stress response state, then we start to see things back the way they were, and they stop posing a threat to us again. Yeah, I mean that's a general overview there. Obviously, what Nogard might be talking about is a specific reason for social anxiety being in some way sparked up, but you might know that better than I would know that in terms of what it means for you. But no, it's great that you're dealing with it, and you're on the, I was going to say, on the up and up again. Is that a Hamilton quote? Might be. Watched it again the other day. Okay, let me move on to Loz has put something in here. Let me chuck that one up. Right, Loz, I'm debating with the thought that when I turn going out, is it because the anxious feelings you turn down going out? Is that what is that a typo there? I'm debating with the thought that when I turn down going out, is it because the anxious feelings take over, or that I'm now older in the last few years and I'm just not bothered? Am I just used to feeling and thinking this way? If it's more anxiety, I want to challenge it. But if it's just I'm not bothered, then I'm okay. Bizarre question, but that's where I'm at. Oh, you know what? I think that's a really understandable and quite common situation we find ourselves in. We're so used to being restricted by anxiety that when we come away from things that we might have done in the past, or things that we feel like, oh, shouldn't I be feeling differently about that? We attribute it to anxiety rather than just, do I want to or do I not want to? I had this with a client recently, funny enough. I think you've got to ask yourself, Loz, you've got to kind of ask yourself what you feel the reason is. Because I think in many instances, we start to think that there's some underlying reason that our subconscious isn't revealing to us. So we feel like, oh, I just don't fancy it. But what's actually happening is there's a bit of our subconscious that's saying, no, let's discourage that. We don't want to go out. We don't want to do that. And I think sometimes if we just feel like we don't want to do it, we don't want to do it. As we get older, it's one of those I'm going to say a sad truth. I don't think it's a sad truth. Yeah, when I was younger, used to go out every weekend. These days, I find the thought of going out drinking with a load of people is like the worst possible thing in the world. And bearing in mind, when I used to go out every weekend, I was in my phase of social anxiety. Now I'm fine. I just don't want to go out. You know what I mean? So it's like don't always kind of resist the temptation to always look for an anxiety-based reason why you do or you don't want to do things. I would, if you don't want to go out, don't beat yourself. You don't have to go out. My idea of a good night now is just sitting in with Brit and just, chilling out and watching nice programs or playing a game or other things. I think that's, yeah. I think you will know, you know what I mean? If you feel like it's a fear-based response or if it's just I don't fancy it. If you were to ask me, Loz, I think you just don't fancy it, because I think you'd know if it was a fear-based thing, if it was based on anxiety. I get that when we experience high anxiety, we get in the habit of turning things down. It becomes our default to say, no, I can't do that. But the fact that you're questioning it and there still isn't a really obvious answer for you, I think maybe you just fancy staying in, and more power to you, We don't always have to go out and do things, I think, anyway. But, right, let me chuck up the next comment then. By the way, if you like some of the answers I'm giving, if it's providing some help, some benefit to you, please hit the like button. Feel free to share this video if you want to. And if it's your first time here, why not subscribe? Because I'm putting up like 2 videos every week, and we're doing a live stream every week. And if you really, really like what I'm talking about and you think this might be the answer for you, then there is a members area of this channel where there are over 100 other videos, including my full system for change that I use with clients. As well as we do an exclusive members live stream every Wednesday, which inevitably I get the opportunity to explore topics with a little bit more depth because the live streams are slightly smaller, less comments coming in quite so quick fire. Also, if you're a member of this channel, you get to be a member of the Facebook group, the private Facebook group that we have as well. We've got a little community sort of thing. So yeah, if that's of interest to you, there's a join button on the main page. Right. Anyway, Matt, I put this up a minute ago and then I didn't read it. Hi, Tim. Thanks for the recommendations of Tim Lindeberg video last week. Helped a lot. And I've started going out again after 6 months. Only 5-minute walks with small steps. Good man. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Yeah, I really liked him. Tim contacted me 2 or 3 months ago and we did a video together. I think if you see it on my channel, it's like how we got over our own anxieties. And it was really interesting to talk to him because he comes from more of a psychoanalytical approach. He's more of a counselor type therapist than a hypnotherapist. So we have a slightly different way of looking at things and working with people. But it was really interesting how much we agreed on and how much crossover there was in terms of the way we look at anxiety and anxiety issues. And I liked Tim's channel as well. I think there was a question in one of the groups about frequent urination and needing to go to the toilet all the time. And I know Tim had that as one of his symptoms when he went through anxiety. And that's why he's got a few videos on the channel up there. So another big recommendation for Tim. But I'm glad that was useful and really, really good on you going out again after 6 months. That is awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Really well done. Really well done. You should feel very, very proud of that. Right. Shane, passed my driving test back in August, but in the last couple of weeks, I've been becoming very anxious when driving. I don't know what made me feel like it. Is there anything I can do to calm my anxiety? So, okay, hang on. You passed driving test back in August. Excuse me. Now, here's the thing, Shane. It's one of those things where there can be loads of reasons why we suddenly start to feel uncomfortable at something we felt comfortable about before. I would say, for starters, if it's only in August, you're still in the first few months of being a driver. So feeling anxious at times, like suddenly having more anxiety than you did yesterday, for example, I think that's one of those things we go through when we're still quite fresh to it, because inevitably we do this thing where we pass our driving test, but we haven't really learned to drive in that process. And bear with me, because what I mean is that we've done enough to get our certificate to drive. And any driver will tell you, we didn't really learn to get comfortable driving until we got out there on our own and started driving around every day. And then after a while, we started to feel more and more comfortable. But of course, what that means is that you're still learning certain things. So you still might have instances on the road where you didn't feel quite so comfortable, or for some reason, something new popped into your head about this particular situation on the road. So there's still fresh thoughts coming in about driving. And all I would say is you don't have to attribute those fresh thoughts that may cause you to be a little bit more cautious with, oh, I'm having some anxiety issue about driving. I think what you're going through is perfectly natural. It is part of the learning process. We always say, don't we, that recovery from anxiety is never a straight line upwards. It's always like a mountain range. And something new as well is the same thing. We do that thing where we think we know it all because we've learned it, and then we realize we don't know it all. I don't know if you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which might apply here. Yeah, we do this when we first learn something. We have the idea that we know it all because we've learned a new discipline, and oh my God, I can drive now, or something like that. Then, as we learn more and more, we start to realize the vastness of the discipline or the area of study. And we realize we actually don't know that much compared to what there is to know. And so we feel a little bit less capable, even though we're still getting better and better and better all the time, but we feel less capable because now what we know compared to what there is to know seems minuscule. Whereas before we thought we just knew everything about a small subject, And the Dunning-Kruger effect also describes the fact that eventually, as you do this years and years and years, you do ultimately reach a point where hopefully you feel like you've got a certain level of expertise, where you understand the vastness of the field, but you recognize that you do have a good knowledge in it. But anyone will tell you that even the best experts in the world at any subject also are very aware of the fact they don't know it all. I think that's a good place to be as well, you know. So I think maybe that's what's going on there, Shane, is that it's just a bit of the Dunning-Kruger effect going on there, and you're sort of there's a bit of you saying, oh look, there is a lot more still to learn to be really good or really comfortable with this, you know. Maybe you're doing yourself a disservice by thinking that you've just had random suddenly become very anxious about it. Yeah, I always think of it this way. There's always a reason why we feel anxious. Yeah. And it's not always like the most logical reason either. It's not always like perfectly thought through, but it's cause and effect. There's a reason why we feel a certain way. And if we can work out why that is, we maybe don't have to beat ourselves up for, oh, I'm randomly out of nowhere feeling really anxious, you know. But I hope that thought helps. Okay, just music. Okay, hello Tim. I've been meaning to join the live for a while and I've followed you for about a year. Now your approach and video have massively helped me. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased, and I'm so glad you joined the live and you've said hello as well. It's good to see a new username on the comments list. Welcome. Skip. My health anxiety was so bad 8 months ago. I started to dissociate. Horrible feeling. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm on a very low dose of meds. I do my breathing exercises and zone 2 treadmill work. Okay. I don't know that. Treadmill work. I think you'd have to I'd love to know more. I might, sometimes we do these lives and I'm thinking, I'm going to be Googling that later, aren't I? But then this is the thing. I'm not one of those therapists that has, okay, do this between sessions and etc. Right. I will say though, dissociation, yeah, it feels horrible. It's one of those things. If you haven't experienced it, it's so difficult to describe because it's just the best I've got is it's next level weird. You know what I mean? And it's not one of those things that is the same for everyone either. That's why it's so difficult to pin exactly what it is. You get a lot of people who will feel dissociated and not recognize what it is for a long time, almost like not pinpoint the exact feeling or notice the exact moments. It's just like suddenly we'll be like, oh, I'm there again, aren't I? When did that happen? Yeah. But I think what I would say is that dissociation is a perfectly healthy response. Okay, this is, if I can in any way discourage you from getting locked in the feedback loop of there's something wrong with me and that creating more dissociation because you have anxiety about there being something wrong with you, it is a healthy response. It is a mistaken response from your subconscious, granted. Yeah, but making mistakes is what human beings do. And our subconscious is going to make mistakes very, very frequently. That's how we learn. Okay. So what's happened there is you've got so anxious that the experience has been so unpleasant that a bit of you has said, right, you know what safety measures we do have? Let's just dissociate from it. So instead of being in the movie, we're watching the movie, that kind of thing. It's different for everyone, to be fair, but I'm just using that as a slightly reductive explanation of it. Yeah. And then, of course, it feels so weird that a bit of us freaks out about that because it's like what's going on there? My brain is malfunctioning or something like that. It feels horrible feeling, as Skip says. That is exactly the way to describe it. But always know that it's a healthy response to an overwhelmingly unpleasant circumstance or environment. Okay, that's what we can do. It's why we can get through difficult times, because we just step back a little bit. And mind says, no, emotions are a little bit too much for me right now. Let's step back from it. Yeah. And so what tends to happen is when we can accept it, as hard as that sounds, as just a part of our response to what's going on, then we don't do that thing then of creating further dissociation because we're getting increasingly anxious about being dissociated. Yeah. But I hope that in some way is a benefit to you, Skip. And thanks for joining this live as well. Right. Okay. Omar has put in a question here about somatic therapy. Right. I would need to just know exactly what that is you're referring to, because there's so many different therapies that have the term somatic in them, I'd need to know, because I noticed you've capitalized it, so clearly it's a specific therapy you're talking about. So I'm, you know what I might do, Omar? I might do my research on that one, and if it's something, I might maybe do a video about that then, because it feels like I should probably do something, because I'm doing these Monday videos now that are literally taking some of the questions that we've got and just doing like a 4 or 5 minute answer to them. But I do want to give you a proper answer to that, because I know you've asked that before as well, and I need to do my research before I give you an actual my opinion on it, my take on it. I think I will give you an overview here in terms of what therapy should we be engaging with, though. I'll give you an opinion on that if you like. Every therapy can potentially be of help to us. I don't think there's a therapy that's just, don't do that one, that's a terrible idea, except maybe, electrotherapy. Don't, I know we don't get a choice to do electrotherapy or not, but that, there's, every therapy has its merits because people are using it it's out there because people are using it to receive benefit. But of course, not every therapy, not any therapy is right for everyone. So, like the method that I use isn't right for everyone. But it's right for me as a practitioner. So that's my general overview on different therapies, is like, yeah, find the right one for you. And when you do, you will get some great results with it. And sometimes it's like, kissing the frogs. You've got to go through the things that didn't resonate with you, or the therapists that didn't resonate with you as well. I think there's a lot to be said for finding the right person as well as the right method for you. Like, for example, CBT in the UK is obviously the therapy that the NHS refers people to if they're having mental health difficulties. But in my opinion, CBT is very counterintuitive when it comes to anxiety, because the particular way of doing it can just as easily feed into our anxiety as it does relieve it. So whilst I'm not a direct fan of it, I know CBT has helped loads of people. I'm also not a fan of medication, but I know medication has helped. I know there's people on the planet right now who wouldn't be on the planet right now if they hadn't got the right meds at the right time, so let's not just dismiss it. Another example, we were talking about on the practitioner forum that I run every month for my practitioners, we were talking about addictions, and the topic of, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, came up, and the 12-step method. And, again, I'm not a fan of that, because I think there's certain things that you have to do in those 12 steps that disempower you to the degree where, I don't know, I don't think it's the best approach. But I know there's people that have had great success with it. So I can't knock it in, a broad, wholesale, can I? Because that wouldn't be fair. So I think every therapy has its merits. And when I know what somatic therapy is, I'll give you my opinion on that, because I like giving my opinion on things. But I'll do my research before I do that. That was a really long answer to basically say, I don't know, Omar, but I will come back to that, promise you. Okay. Right. No, God, medication was not the solution, definitely, at least for myself. In fact, that's the reason why I searched for an alternative and found you, because I realized meds were only treating the symptoms. Yeah, I think that's spot on. That comes in neatly to what I was just talking about. Medication can be helpful. It can get us through difficult times, but it's not working with the reason why we feel the way we do. It's just working with the feelings. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Nana. Oh God. Right, hang on, Matt. That was the video recommended, needing the toilet. Oh yeah, we're going back to the Tim Lindeberg thing. Yeah. Gave myself a big high five for Shane. I've been on the road a long time as a lorry driver. You learn every day on the street. That's really good. Thank you, Matt. That's really good. I hope Shane sees that comment. Yeah, you never know everything, do you? Yeah. And if you're feeling anxious about some aspect of driving, there's a bit of you just saying, oh, pay attention to that. That we've just learned that there. We've just seen something there we didn't know before, or something like that. That's all it is. Right, just music has come in with a comment here. I nearly fainted once when out with friends 4 years ago. Now, whenever I feel ill, I panic, feel dizzy, and think it will happen. I'm on my own recovery journey, going well, but get setbacks. You know what? Yes, you get setbacks. I think that's fair to say. Don't think of them as setbacks, though, because I think of it this way, right? When we embark upon that journey to get from over here to over there, so, in terms of our recovery, if we want to use recovery as a word, yeah, we don't know what the terrain looks like. Yeah, we don't know if it goes like that or if it goes like that to get where we want to. So don't think of it when we go have a down period. Don't think of it as a setback. Think of it as, oh, look, I just found out that the next few steps were down before they go up again. That's all it is. You continue to move forward. You don't know the terrain until you get there. Yeah. But I hope that but what you're describing there as well, that's a very understandable reaction to a situation that creates a fair amount of subconscious confusion. Our job is to clear up that confusion so that part of your mind that is triggering the panic response, if you like, can stop doing that. This is the thing. When we've got certain symptoms, if I can use, or sensations, maybe sensations is a better word to use rather than symptoms, which again suggests illness, which is not what we're talking about. We're talking about emotions. When we have certain sensations that we associate with the bad thing that happened in the past, we can fixate on them. So whenever anything about our responses resembles them, suddenly we zoom in on it and we make it worse than it otherwise would be. Even though they're all natural sensations to varying degrees. Yeah, but yeah, pleased to hear you're on your recovery journey. That's great stuff. Oh, okay. So Skip, you've just explained what zone 2 treadmill work is when your heart rate is 60 to 70%. Okay, so is that kind of like getting used to, sort of eliminating cardiophobia by getting used to the heart rate being up and sort of you doing something with the adrenaline that we feel. That's I can see the benefit in that. And I'm generally not a fan of exercising, but we got a treadmill this year just because we were trying to get our steps in. I'm trying to do 10,000 steps a day this year, just for the hell of it. I think, when you set yourself something, you're like, why have I set myself that as a target? I'll have a go. Right. Let me see. Let's get Shane's response. So Shane, we were talking about the driving stuff. Thanks, Tim. What you said makes sense. I would like to add, it's brilliant to see you back uploading videos. I always find them very helpful. That's good. Yeah, I'm pleased. I did take a bit of a break from them. But I've come back like, you take a break from something and you feel like you get all loads of ideas building up, and it's because I'm still seeing clients one-to-one every day, and it's talking to clients that give me my ideas for videos and you guys questions as well, but mainly talking to people. So it's great when you come back after a while, because you've got all these, I've got all these notes of videos that I want to do. So I'm in the process of catching up. I've got a good 20 or 30 videos that I want to get out over the first half of this year. So watch this space, Okay, let me put something in there then. How do you come back from avoidance? So, okay, you're talking about kind of, just like as in avoiding the things that stimulate for your perception anxiety, things that, avoiding situations that might cause you to feel increasingly or highly anxious. So that's going to depend on the individual, right? I think we spoke. Who was it was asking just literally a minute ago? Was it Loz that was asking about this? Hang on, I'm going to just go back up so I can refer to the correct. Loz was saying about not going out. Is it for anxiety reasons, or is it I just don't want to? Things like that. I think you get in a habit sometimes of just, okay, that's the thing I can't do. That's the thing I have to avoid. There's a bit of you that says, that thing caused that part of our mind to have a problem. That situation caused, this crew member, this bit of my subconscious to panic or have high anxiety. And so this part of your mind says, let's encourage them to avoid that in the future. Yeah, I call these parts onlookers, if you like. they're not the parts that were responsible for the high anxiety, but they sure as hell witnessed it and didn't like the feeling when that part hit the panic button. Yeah, so they're just creating anticipatory anxiety. I think onlookers learn. Yeah, if there's no real reason anymore to feel highly anxious about things, onlookers learn when we re-engage. They learn pretty quick. They're like, oh, look, turns out we're not panicking anymore. So if we start to re-engage with the things we've been avoiding, and we find out actually the experience, and so this is the key here. It's not about doing it. It's not about just do it over, desensitize yourself. It's about what you learn from the doing. Yeah, exposure therapy, as in just expose yourself to the situation, keep doing it, can work really, really well, but it completely depends on what your mind learns in the process of exposure, right? If it just learns that was terrifying, that was horrible, then you won't get any better responses from your mind, because it will just reinforce the idea that this is really, I don't know, dangerous even. Yeah. But if you do the thing and you realize, oh, hang on, the actual thing wasn't as bad as what I created in my mind in the run up to it, then that part of your mind can learn, hey, that level of fear was unwarranted. As in, yeah, it was an unpleasant experience, but it didn't have to be, because it was only what I did with that experience that caused it to be. So that's what I would be saying in that instance, Kay, is that when you seek to re-engage with these situations, but seek to expect to be learning that they are not as unpleasant when you do them as the story you built up in your mind. Allow those onlookers to learn that, hey, we're not actually creating any response that is inherently terrifying. We've just imagined that it might be. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope that's of use to you. I've got the gist of what you were asking as well. I'm just going to hang on. Let me go. Kay's got a thing. I've not tried therapy, but trying self-help is getting more difficult. I think we don't always need therapy. Okay, because for some people, therapy just won't resonate anyway. I'd love to think that what I do is right for everyone. I can fix everyone. The miraculous Tim Box. Here he is, the amazing. But it's not the way, because it's not the way for everyone. And ultimately, even if we do therapy, it's ourself that makes the change. All the therapist is doing is seeking to guide the client where they need to go. They're not going there for them. They're not going to wave the magic therapy wand and fix you. Okay. The idea here is that it's always going to be self-work anyway, but sometimes guidance can be helpful. Yeah. Now, as much as I would tell you that the answers to everything are out there on the internet these days. How many pages of internet is there? Who knows? More than can be counted, more than we could even switch off. Yeah. So the answers are out there for everyone, but trying to find them can be a bit of a minefield, can't it? Because you're also going to find a lot of misinformation and stuff that doesn't resonate with you. But just know, Kay, that if you decide to make the journey, you guarantee you will get there. Yeah. It's the people that I see that when a client says to me, I've tried everything. Yeah, or I've tried loads of therapies. For some people, some practitioners, that's oh no, how am I going to get a result if they didn't get a result elsewhere? For me, I'm really pleased with that, because it means that I've got a client in front of me that has already decided I'm just going to keep trying what I need to do to find what I need to find, and I'm going to get there. Those are the people that get their results. And there will be times, Kay, when it is harder than other times. I guarantee that. Yeah, but there is also that moment where you find the right approach, and suddenly everything simplifies. One other thing I'll add here, to all of those people that might be in this room thinking I'm at a real low right now, I want to give you an absolute truth. An absolute truth is that it is possible and even quite common that when we're at our very lowest, like I cannot imagine ever recovering to where I was before. We are probably only a few moments away from recovering to that degree. Yeah, I think it's worth remembering that we change our state and our mood very, very quickly when we get the right information, the right understanding. So don't think no matter how low you are or how difficult it is right now, it isn't capable of changing just like that before we know it. Yeah, it doesn't mean it always will do, but just know that that is always there. That is always possible. Okay. Right. Kaladi. Hey, Tim, I'm no meds. Is that I'm on meds? I'm embracing it. It's been working so far for me. No physical symptoms so far. Yeah, right. So it's on meds. There is just one thought, and it's that I'm going to lose my mind. And when I see, a mentally ill person, it just scares me so much that I start relating it with me, that I'm going on the same road and I will lose my mind. This one particular thought is so strong, it disturbs me. Right. I think that's one of the most common thoughts that I encounter with clients. The idea that in some way I'm going to go downhill to the point where it's irreparable, where I will lose my mind, where I'll go crazy, where I'll no longer have any control over my mental well-being. That's one of the big fears. And to be fair, that's often the thing that fuels it, the thing that perpetuates it even. Sometimes it's even the only thing that creates high anxiety. It's just this idea that I'm going to become one of those mentally ill people. And okay, the first thing I would say, mentally ill is such a broad reaching term. And most of the people that we see, that we look at them and I don't know, we see them online or we see footage of people and we're like, oh my God, they've lost their mind, haven't they? Most of the time they're dealing with psychosis. Yeah. And psychosis is generally induced. It's not like an inherent genetic, I cannot get back, I'm psychotic, that's it, that's me, that's the story of me. It just means there's been this sort of perfect storm of lack of self-care. High fight or flight state, lack of sleep, lack of looking after yourself. And any healthy mind can go into a psychotic state. Yeah, if you give it the right sort of mixture of negative circumstances. Okay, so it's not about whether you're going to become mentally ill or something. It's about do the things you need to do, look after you, and your healthy mind will remain healthy. Yeah. It's not like, have I got this programming in me? Is it just going to trigger at some point? Am I just going to go down this road? No. Look after yourself. Do what you need to do. And you'll be okay. That would be my advice in terms of how we dispel that idea that in some way I'm going to head down that road that I see other people down. The people you see there are not there for good anyway. Yeah, that's just where they might be at the moment. Then they move on from there. I spoke to somebody, this was years ago, who was talking about a psychotic episode they had. And it was literally fueled 100% by the fact that they had some drugs. Yeah. And I should say, it's not the drugs that did it. It was that it stopped them sleeping for a while, for an extended period, for they really weren't getting any sleep for a good few days. Yeah. And by the way, if you think, oh, I don't sleep for a good few, yeah, you do. You just don't realize the times you sleep. When somebody says, I didn't sleep all night, you did. Yeah. You were, there was a lot of time you were awake and you were very aware of it. Okay. But what I'm talking about is when it's like some chemically induced, like you're right, I literally can't close my eyes sort of thing. And because they were short of sleep, they weren't, They weren't dispelling the waste matter that your brain produces that gets dispersed through your lymphatic system. They weren't able to do that because that's what you do when you sleep. And as a result, they had toxins in their brain that made them, see things that weren't there and hear things that weren't there. And so they had psychotic episodes. As soon as they got some good sleep, though, they were fine again. There was nothing to repair there. There was just like, let your body do its healing. So don't think that mentally ill is this kind of terrifying state that cracks your mind or breaks your mind. It's just, a lot of the time, it's just mistreatment of ourselves to the point where our mind is saying, hang on, I haven't been able to do my restorative work properly at the moment, But your body's really good at healing. Get a good night's sleep, eat the right foods, or just eat any foods, to be fair. And all can be well. I don't want to try and be too reductive or dismissive of people dealing with psychosis, but I'm just saying that the thing we fear isn't as one way as we fear it is. Okay. It's just all our moods, all our states change. They move on. They're transient. Yeah. So don't think we get stuck anywhere. Right. And Michael, hello. Hope you're well. I'm finding my anxiety very on, then off, and my self-doubt is massive. I'm always asking my partner if what I'm saying makes sense. Cheers. If you've noticed, I always ask if what I'm saying makes sense on these lives as well. I noticed that the other day, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's a real common response that you've got going on there. The self-doubt when we've gone through periods of anxiety, it's like we might be a person with perfectly good self-esteem, perfectly good self-confidence, but then we go through a highly anxious phase, and then we look at ourselves and we say, yeah, but this person that I thought I was, when I'm in an anxious phase, I'm actually down here, and the things I thought I could depend on, I don't know if I can anymore. And of course, then the self-doubt further damages our self-esteem. And so then we feel more anxious and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't be too concerned when anxiety comes and goes, Michael, because you've got to remember that the job of our mind is to flag up whatever it deems might be important for us. Yeah. And it uses anxiety as a way of doing that. Your subconscious creates the emotion of anxiety, which is basically parts of your mind saying, oh, pay conscious attention to this thing because I think it's the most important thing. Sometimes it could be a good thing that your mind is saying for you to focus on. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes it contains some level of threat. And if it contains some level of threat, then it becomes what most people refer to as anxiety, which is an actual visceral fight or flight response. We start to get sensations, stomach, chest, heart, whatever it is, as we fill with adrenaline to go into a fight or flight, a healthy response to perceived threat. When we've started to perceive anxiety as a threat, then whenever we feel that natural day-to-day anxiety, it doubles it or triples it, because now we're anxious about the fact we're anxious. So before we've even realized I'm anxious about, I don't know, that meeting tomorrow, or it's time to take the bins out or whatever, we've gone into quite a high level of anxiety because a bit of us says, oh no, anxiety, and that's the threat. So we create the high response. So what's probably happening, Michael, is you're experiencing normal anxiety about, this situation or that situation, as we do in our lives, but there's a bit of you interpreting anxiety as the problem. So it then becomes a bit of a roller coaster rather than just a few up and downs in the road. It exaggerates it. Yeah. So what I would suggest is don't be too concerned by feeling anxious. Allow the feelings to be there. The more often you can just say, oh yeah, I can feel anxiety. What am I anxious about? Yeah. The more often you can push through the fact that you're anxious and just listen to what am I anxious about, then you can deal with the things you're anxious about. Like, oh, am I ready for that meeting tomorrow? Did I take the bins out for them tomorrow? That kind of thing, rather than just focusing on the fact that you are anxious. And then it will naturally diminish and become, more what you might refer to as your normal functional anxiety. Okay. Hey, Carlos. Sorry, I'm late. That's okay. You can come in at any time. Just arrive whenever you feel like it. No problem. Right. I'm skimming through now because I'm gonna. What are we on? 42 minutes. Oh, I'm nearing the bottom. I'm nearing the bottom of the list. Hang on. Carlos has got something good to say here, I think. Agree with your words, Tim. Tried therapy and it was more traumatic than helpful. I think it's just not right for me. Always helped myself in my journey and got progress. There you go. Carlos is a case in point there as well. Some therapy, some people respond really well to therapy. Some people don't. And it's about what's right for you. Don't let anyone tell you what's going to be right for you. Don't let anyone decide that you're doing it wrong if you're getting good results from it. Yeah. By the way, I've got a video. If you're thinking about, if you want to do your own, therapy, if you want to be able to, be your own therapist, I literally have a video called How to Be Your Own Therapist. And there's a part 2 to it as well. The first one is all about creating the right environment for positive change, which is based on therapeutic principles. And the second one is more about some tips on how to deal with your own subconscious in terms of the way I think about things. But have a look at them if that's where you want to go. And I know, Kay, you were talking about finding self-help difficult. Have a look at those two because they might be of help. They might be of help. Who knows? Courtney is coming. I think it can depend on the approach to the therapy and the relationship you have with your therapist. I think that's spot on, Courtney. That's the two things. Do you resonate with the approach, the way that we're talking about things, the model that we're using, that kind of thing? And do you click with the therapist? We've all been in that thing where we get in a room with somebody or we get stuck in a conversation with somebody and we're like, we do not see things the same way, or we just don't talk the same language, figuratively speaking. Yeah. That's why I always offer an initial free consultation. I've never been a fan of therapists taking money just to find out if we can talk to each other. I always find that weird. People say, oh, I do this, I charge this per session. And if you want a first session, you pay me this much. Because I'm like, well, we haven't even spoken yet. You could be literally the worst person in the world for me to talk to, So that's why I always do an initial free consultation so that we can at least say hello, see if we talk the same language, and see if we can work together. I think that's a minimum requirement. But I might, I'm not here to say anyone's wrong in what they're doing, but that's how I've always seen it anyway. Right, just music. I'll call them obstacles rather than setbacks from now on. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, push through them, and I'm starting to think they're aiding my recovery, giving me that reassurance that I can get through them. That's a great way of looking at it, isn't it? Everything we overcome, that's another tick box. That's another little coin in the box that says I can do this because I just did that. Yeah, I'm a big believer that I know some people motivate themselves by sort of beating themselves up and saying you're not doing well enough, try harder. That kind, that kind of military approach to self motivation. I'm not a fan of that. I tend to think we take our next big steps because we feel really good about the last steps we took. Yeah, we're inspired to go further because we've just found out we did that last thing that we didn't know if we could do or not. So yeah, absolutely. Look at every little obstacle that you overcome like further proof that you can overcome the obstacles you need to get where you need to go. And this is all about building our self-esteem. Yeah. If we do the work to build our self-esteem, to become more and more satisfied with who we are as an individual, then it doesn't matter what we're facing. We might be facing a huge challenge and we won't necessarily feel tremendously anxious about it because there'll be this sort of inner faith in ourself that we have. And, I say faith, but really it's a knowledge, isn't it? It's evidence-based. Hey, I can overcome things because that's what my memory tells me I've done. I've faced challenges. I've gone through them. I've got the other side of them. It's evidence-based. I don't need faith, a belief in myself. Anyway, right. Is that dead rift? Hi, Tim. Is it normal for new symptoms to arise throughout the recovery process? Very recently, I've encountered what seems like sleep state misperception. Sleep state misperception. Here's another thing I'm going to be Googling now, isn't it? Yeah, is absolutely normal for new. Just resist the temptation to lean into the word symptoms, right? Think of it more like sensations or responses or reactions, that sort of thing. Symptoms is the language of illness. And I know I use the word, but you'll notice whenever I say the word symptoms, I do the magical disclaimer of putting air quotes around it for whatever effect that has, because I'm aware that it's not a word I want to use. It's just a word that fits the bill right now. And I realize that might be how you're using that word in that context. But it's absolutely normal to have new sensations and different things that your mind seems to notice, because you've got to remember that as you go through any sort of recovery process, you're still going to spend large portions of time in that state of high anxiety and fear. And if you're not now producing the sensations that were freaking you out before, or you've become comfortable with them now, there's still a bit of you saying, where's the threat? Where's the threat? So it doesn't, and you've got to remember that anything that's going on with you physically, your mind is capable of amplifying by paying too much attention to it. So don't feel you need to be too concerned about the fact that I'm noticing different things, or I seem to be producing different sensations or things like that. So at the end of the day, nothing about this is anything you need to fear. Good question, though. Good question. I hope that helps. And again, sleep state misperception. I'm going to be researching that. It's so weird, actually. Often on these lives, people using terminology that I either haven't come across before or is stuff that I only know vaguely on the peripherals, because I do a very specific type of therapy and I don't necessarily pride myself on keeping abreast of the latest therapies or the latest approaches. My knowledge is in hypnotherapy. If you're going to say historically, what do I, what discipline do I understand in terms of understand the history of it? It's hypnotherapy. But there are there's some really good and effective therapies out there. It can be a bloody minefield at times, though, isn't it? Trying to work out which one's going to be right for you. And sorry, I'm talking about therapies again, but I mean, and the way that we classify things, the way we talk about certain issues, different therapies will have different names for the same things. So that's why, apologies if I'm not always up to date with exactly the terminology that you're using. There you go. There's my talking way out of that, didn't I? Right. Kaladi, I'm scared to try alcohol now, even in parties and on vacations. A few weeks ago, I had a really bad hangover that led to a massive panic attack. I want to enjoy my moments again. So you don't have to get a hangover from drinking. Yeah, and I don't mean here's a tip to not get a hangover. It's like the tip to not get a hangover is not drink to excess. Yeah, you don't have to. If you don't have to put it this way, your mind is doing that aversion thing. As in, what did I do wrong to cause that panic attack? Well, I had a hangover. What did I do wrong to get a hangover? I drank. Okay, let's avoid drink. It's using the extreme strategy rather than the kind of the more nuanced strategy. Yeah, I would call it, the way we refer to it with my practitioner is the broadest strategy, where your mind comes up with a solution, but it's a pretty shit one. It's like, just avoid this at all costs. It's like when, I don't know, you get bitten by a dog that was a particularly savage and badly trained dog, and now you can't go near any dog. It's like your mind has come up with a solution to not getting bitten by a dog, but it's pretty restrictive one. I had a client once who had a fear of getting in the car because they'd been in a car accident, and the simple fact was they didn't know why the accident had happened, because they literally were driving, and then the next thing they knew, they were waking up at the side of the road because it was the other driver's fault. So their subconscious said, what did we do wrong to cause that to happen, or to not avoid it from happening? Okay, we got in a car. That's about all we can come up with. So it created fear around that experience. Yeah. So Kaladi, what your mind has said is, right, what did we do wrong to create that panic attack? And you've attributed it to having a hangover, and in turn have attributed that to being caused by alcohol. So now your mind said, right, we won't go near alcohol. But you can absolutely have alcohol without getting hungover. But here's the thing: the reason why hangovers can lead to panic attacks, as if I'm saying that's some cause of panic attacks. Look, there's only one cause of panic attack, and that is ultimately feeling unwell to the point where your mind panics about how unwell you're feeling. That's it. Okay. So hangovers obviously can fit that bill, because we could feel headachy, we could feel dizzy, we could feel sick, we could feel disoriented. And so if there's a bit of your mind that says, hang on, this feels a little bit like there's something going wrong with our health, then that part of you might hit the panic button. The panic is a response to, there's something going wrong with me. When in truth, there's nothing going wrong with you that isn't a natural response to overindulging in alcohol. Yeah. So being able to recognize that the panic attack isn't directly linked to the alcohol, it's just how your mind responded to feeling unwell. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I know it's a very nuanced. There's a very there's a wafer thin difference there, but it's an important difference. Okay. I hope that helps. Paul's had to go. See you later, Paul. This will be the last one then. This will be the last question, because we're right at the very end. 52 minutes. I told you these tend to go on longer now. Jake Aman. Hi, Tim. Hope you're well. I'm finding that sensations are much worse when I buy into them or focus on them. Recently was on holiday and felt much better. I find it hard to stop focusing on how I feel. Yeah. You know what? That's exactly it. Okay. You focus on the feelings and you amplify them. What we focus on grows. And this is why we go from feeling anxious to suddenly feeling bloody anxious. Because now, if you think of it like this, right? If you've got a picture on your phone screen or something, and you zoom into it, yeah, you're still seeing the same size screen, but now it's filled with that one detail that you zoomed in on. Okay. Think of stuff like this, like sensations in your body, as that same thing. Yeah. You don't go closer to it and now you're looking at a small thing. No, you've amplified that small thing into a huge thing in your mind. Yeah. So that's why the sensations we focus on inevitably grow, because we've zoomed in, we've made them bigger in our perception. Okay. The reason why your mind is focusing on them is because your mind is still perceiving some level of threat from them. Like there's something wrong with having these sensations. And the simple truth is that there's nothing wrong with having them. Yeah, this is not a malfunction. This is your body responding appropriately to perceived threat. The only mistake it's making is that there is any threat. Yeah. So it's almost like the work here is to let go of the idea that there's something threatening about the way you feel. There's something threatening about anxiety sensations, as it were. I think I said this the other day, but that's not anxiety, it's fear. Yeah, it doesn't become visceral until fear is involved. So what it actually is the healthy fear response, fight or flight, kicking in based on the perception of threat. Anxiety draws your attention to something, but it's the perception that it contains some level of threat that turns it into fear. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's of help. Right, okay. We've made it to the end. I'm glad we got through all of them. I still haven't done a live where I haven't managed to answer every question that we've got. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that one. And what I'm going to do as well, you've got the subscribe thing up there. Also, if you're interested, you can become a member of the channel. Yeah, it's there's a join button on the home screen. You have to be on your laptop or your computer for it. Yeah, I don't think you can do it on your iPhone devices. But if you like what I'm talking about, if it's providing help for you, you can become a part of that membership community. Get the access to the 100+ extra videos and get access to the weekly members lives that we do. Or just do me a favor and share this video if it's been of any help to you and you think other people might benefit from it. Okay, I'm always trying to get the word out there. I've started to do this channel because I realized that working one-to-one with clients was great, but there's a limited amount of people I can help. With YouTube, God bless YouTube, I can get out to more people and we can get more people getting the information they need to start to reduce anxiety. Understanding is the antidote. And it would be great if more people had access to this understanding. Okay, well, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Remember, take some downtime, have some time for you. That's what the weekend's for. I hope it's not too cold wherever you are, and I hope you get to do something fun. And as I always say, no matter what you're doing, always remember, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.